It's no secret that Vladimir Putin's leadership style is characterized by paranoia, aggression, and a willingness to pursue policies that defy international norms. While his approach has allowed him to maintain power and influence within Russia, there are growing concerns that his craziness could ultimately lead to the country's downfall. In today's video, we'll be showing you how Putin's craziness will bring Russia down. Without further ado, let's begin. One of the most obvious ways in which Russia's and Putin's craziness could bring Russia down is through its impact on the economy. The government's emphasis on protecting Russia from external threats has often come at the expense of economic growth and development. Putin's regime has invested heavily in the military and security apparatus while neglecting other critical areas such as education and healthcare. As a result of which, the economy in Russia has stagnated, and Russia has become increasingly reliant on its natural resource exports to generate revenue. Moreover, Putin's regime has been accused of corruption and cronyism, which has further undermined the country's economic potentials. Large-scale projects such as the construction of the Sochi Olympics infrastructure have been plagued by allegations of graft and embezzlement, which have eroded public trust and confidence in the government. Another way in which Putin's craziness could bring Russia down is through its impact on civil society. The government's crackdown on political opposition and independent media has led to a situation where it's difficult, if not impossible, for individuals to express their opinions freely or to engage in open and honest debate. This in turn has created an environment where NGOs and advocacy groups face intense scrutiny and pressure from the government, making it difficult for them to operate effectively. This lack of civil society engagement has contributed to a sense of apathy and disillusionment among the Russian people, who fear that their voices are not being heard. As a result, there is a risk in the country that it could become increasingly unstable as social tensions continue to simmer below the surface. Another way in which Putin's craziness could bring Russia down is through its impact on international relations. Putin's aggressive policies towards neighboring countries such as Ukraine and Georgia have led to widespread condemnation from the international community. Moreover, his government's interference in foreign elections and support for the far-right populist movement in Europe and the United States has further damaged Russia's reputation on a global stage. These actions have resulted in economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and a loss of trust among Russia's traditional allies. The country has become increasingly isolated, with few countries willing to engage in productive partnership or trade agreements. This in turn has further undermined the country's economic potential, as it's become increasingly difficult to attract foreign investments or access global markets. Moreover, Putin's craziness has led to a situation where the country is increasingly dependent on its military might to protect power and influence, rather than its soft power or economic clout. This has created a situation where Russia is now seen as a destabilizing force in international affairs rather than a constructive partner. One of the most concerning aspects of Putin's craziness is his tendency to prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability. For example, his regime annexation of Crimea and support for separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine have provided a temporary boost in his popularity at home, but it's created a long-term geopolitical problem that will be difficult to resolve. Similarly, his regime supported Bashar al-Assad in Syria, which has come at a tremendous cost to Russia, both in terms of resources and reputation. While Putin's intervention in the Syrian conflict has allowed him to project power and influence in the region, it has also resulted in a significant loss of life and a humanitarian crisis that has displaced millions of people. Moreover, Russia's involvement in the Syrian conflict has further eroded its reputation on the global stage, with many countries viewing Russia as a destabilizing force as well in the Middle East. Another way in which Putin's craziness could bring Russia down is through its impact on demographic trends. Russia is facing a demographic crisis in its own country, with a declining population and an aging workforce. While the government has taken steps to address these challenges, such as increasing financial incentives for families to have more children, its focus on militarization and security has often come at the expense of social welfare programs and investments in healthcare and education. Moreover, Putin's regime has been accused of using tactics such as propaganda and disinformation to manipulate public opinion and undermine the demographic process. This has further eroded public trust in government institutions and created a situation where it's difficult for the country to address its demographic challenges in a constructive manner. One of the most concerning aspects of Putin's craziness is his willingness to use aggressive tactics to maintain power and suppress dissent. Putin's regime has been accused of engaging in human rights abuses, including the imprisonment of political opponents, journalists, and activists. Moreover, Putin has shown little tolerance for opposition voices within Russia, often using tactics such as propaganda, disinformation, and censorship to manipulate public opinion and suppress dissent. This approach has not only undermined the credibility of Russia's political system, but also created a situation where there's little room for constructive dialogue or compromise. In the absence of a healthy political opposition, Putin's regime risks becoming increasingly isolated from the needs and concerns of ordinary Russian citizens, which could lead to further unrest and instability for the future. Moreover, Putin's craziness has also had a detrimental impact on Russia's scientific and technological development. While Russia has a long and proud history of scientific achievement, the country has struggled in recent years to keep pace with other global superpowers such as the United States and China. This is due in part to the lack of investment in research and development, as well as a brain drain of talented scientists and engineers who have left the country in search of better opportunities abroad. Putin's regime has also been accused of using its control over the media to downplay or dismiss scientific findings that do not align with its political interest. For example, the Russia response to COVID-19 pandemic has been criticized for being slow and ineffective, in part because the government downplayed the severity of the crisis and virus in the first place and failed to take appropriate measures to contain its spread. Finally, Putin's craziness could bring Russia down by exacerbating the country's environmental challenges. Russia is facing a number of significant environmental challenges, including air and water pollution, deforestation, and the impacts of climate change. While the government has taken some steps to address these challenges, its focus on economic growth and political stability has often come at the expense of environmental protection. Moreover, Putin's regime has been accused of using its control over the media to downplay or dismiss the severity of the environmental problems in the country. This has created a situation where many Russians are unaware of the extent of the environmental challenges facing the country and the urgent need for action to address them. Finally, Putin's craziness has created a situation where Russia is increasingly dependent on his own personal leadership and charisma. While Putin has been successful in maintaining power for more than 2 decades, his regime's lack of institutionalization and its focus on consolidation of power in the hands of a small group of elites has created a situation where there is little room for dissent or alternative voices. This could lead to a situation where there's a power vacuum in the event of Putin's departure, which could create further instability and uncertainty for the country. Putin's craziness is a significant challenge for Russia and the international community. It has had a negative impact on the economy, civil society, and international relations, and has created a situation where the country is increasingly isolated and unstable. Unless there's a significant shift towards more inclusive and democratic governance, Russia is likely to continue down a path of decline and instability, which will have far-reaching consequences for its people and its role in global politics. So guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. For more interesting content, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. For more awesome content, have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.